Hi folks, welcome to Watchman of the King channel. My name's Dan, and I try to bring you the news and world events and things like that from a biblical worldview and looking through the lens of the Bible as much as possible. I don't think I'm going to get much into the news today. We've had a lot go on, and there's enough out there that you can find. Some of the things that we're still paying attention to is the wars and rumors of wars, right? We've got China and Taiwan. We've got the Russian-Ukraine thing. We've got North Korea threatening South Korea again. We've got Iran threatening Israel and threatening the United States. We've got all the stuff that just went on with Islamic Jihad over in Gaza Strip. We've got a few other things regarding wars and rumors of wars. So there's all that going on. We have the Mar-a-Lago incident that happened earlier this week regarding Donald Trump's home in Florida. It was raided by the FBI. And then the very next day, we also had a representative whose phone was taken by the FBI. Some of these things are concerning regarding freedoms. If they can do this to wealthy former sitting presidents who are also lead contender for the nomination and the next presidential election, that tells me that we're heading into very dangerous water with regards to where this country's freedoms are going. That's concerning. It's been all over the news, and you're going to have left-wing news and you're going to have right-wing news, and they're all going to spin it the way and use their terms the way they want to regarding what was this and was it a big deal or was it not a big deal and that kind of thing. The reason why this is a big deal from our perspective is because we're seeing the dismantling of constitutional rights and the weaponizing of federal agencies. So if you get the Department of Justice and the FBI being used against citizens, we're seeing it with a lot of the stuff from the January 6th event. We're seeing it from how they're forming and discussing what Christian nationalism may mean as they're creating new words and trying to make us all look racist and misogynist and all the derogatory ways that they've tried to paint people before. The propaganda machine is out in full force, and it's destroying this nation. The big problem, if America goes, there's nowhere else in the world to go to be free. Now, some will say you've got free countries in other places. Sure. But let's talk about corruption. Let's talk about how free are you really? What's the quality of life in those places? Then we also have news, kind of silent rumbling around this last bill that was passed this past Monday, where they're saying up to 87,000 new IRS employees could be hired, that they could be arming them up, and that the IRS has recently bought hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of ammunition. So some of this stuff is gonna be tinfoil hat stuff. And the reason why I say that is because you're not going to hear it in the mainstream media. If you're watching CNN or Fox, these things, they're not being put out there in front of you. And so you're not being informed. Why would we need 87,000 new IRS agents? Well, here's my 2 cents on that. If you weaponize federal agencies against the people of the United States, they're beholden to the people, except for one particular agency whose laws change nearly every year without having to go through any type of congressional approvals. The IRS changes tax codes and laws every single year. And if you're going to weaponize an agency, that would be the one to do. Because you could pass some obscure law that makes Joe America illegal. No, this is just one more way to dismantle the United States. So why are we even here? Well, it's the end times. And I've said it before in multiple of my videos. I've covered multiple of the signs that Jesus talks about. We don't need to go into numbers. We don't need to jump into Bible codes. We don't need to look at obscure signs. They're all out there. We could talk for months on them. There's enough. I could point you to enough other programs who've done in-depth studies on where we are from a genetic aspect to an AI aspect to UFO disclosures to world government creation. What good would that do other than eat up your time and mine when there's enough of that out there that can be found? Now, if you're one of my viewers and you are sharing my videos with others, it's likely you're already a Watchman. It's very likely that you know a lot of the things I'm already talking about. So that's why today I want to focus in on something else. So I find that in my hobbies, God leads me through new learnings. Last year, as we started discussing supply chain issues, I worked pretty hard at learning how to build indoor and outdoor growing or established growing, gardening types of things. I also started stocking up on dried and canned goods. Now, I'm not a prepper. You'll never find me prepping as some would consider it. I still live in a larger city, and I'm not looking to dig a hole in the ground. Although we've got the threat of nuclear war like has never been since it first came out. All the duck and cover stuff that happened back in the 70s and 80s, 60s, all that stuff, that's child's play compared to the threats that are being put out there today. Now, Jesus said in the end times, men's hearts will fail them for fear of the things that are coming upon this earth. I don't think we're even there yet. I mean, this is something that's going to happen in tribulation. We're already seeing things and I've talked about this over and over again, the shadow on the ground. If we're seeing the shadow of the tribulation, it means that the tribulation's right around the corner. We're on a collision course. That means the rapture is that much closer. A lot of people might think, well, why are we even still here? How can we even be here right now? And it goes back to what Jesus, he doesn't want any to perish. He wants to give everybody an opportunity to repent. And that is what we need to do. So let's talk about sin for a minute, okay? So as I'm learning my hobby of growing vegetables, and I really focused in on hot peppers. And when I say hot peppers, I'm talking scorpions and reapers and the hottest of the hots, okay? Nearly impossible to use in recipes. They're too hot to consume, so I've started learning to make sauces. Now, I was a chef a long time ago, and that sticks with you. You just keep cooking, and it becomes a hobby instead of a career. And so I've always been cooking. Now, that became a source of pride for me. And God had to show me how to put that down and not make it about me, and then to give him the glory in even being able to know how to put these things together. So between my sense of smell and taste and that kind of stuff, I've started using it towards this pepper stuff, right? Okay. But in learning how to grow things, he taught me patience and that I can't control everything. I learned that even in the best, absolute best conditions, it's still up to him on whether or not the seed sprouts, the leaves present, and the plant grows. And sometimes, no matter what I did, a plant could still die on me. It brought me closer to him because I found myself in prayer while I'm planting, while I'm weeding. It brings me through to all the agricultural scriptures that he has in his word. So there's that piece. All right, so then because I've prepped a little bit and I've bought flour and various dried goods, and while I was a chef before, I never was a baker. My forte was always sauces. I was always working and tweaking sauces, hence the pepper sauces I now ferment and create. But I figured I better learn how to make bread. And so I start the process of learning how to make some little artisanal rolls, loaves, and just nice, crusty bread. In doing this, and without even expecting this to happen, I start to understand yeast and leaven more. Now we know in the Bible it talks about leaven and yeast as sin within our lives. And what do we do with that? Well, we know that in Passover, and for that whole week, they have to remove all leaven or yeast from the home. And they are to eat unleavened bread. It kind of looks like a cracker. The dough doesn't rise and that kind of thing. Well, what do we understand about leaven? It does exactly that. It makes dough rise. It ferments and then causes gas pockets and causes the dough to double or triple in size. And I want to show you something here where even just a little tiny bit of yeast can cause. So here we're seeing 3 different styles of pre-fermentation. So I want you to pay attention to how small the first 2 yeast measurements are. And yet, as we watch, look at what happens to the poolish as it rises, even though it was a small amount of yeast. The biga rises just as much, if not a little more, because we've got more flour. So even the sponge still rises. It may change the quickness of how fast things are rising, but it does not change how it affects the entirety of the bowl. So after seeing that, I was immediately reminded of in Galatians when Paul says, even a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. So we're talking about, and I really started to think through this, what does a little bit of sin let into your life or your home begin to do? It starts to grow, and if it's unconfessed and if it's not repented of, it starts to get out of control, and it starts to affect the whole body within the home. So if you're not continually repenting of the sin that you have in your life, you're allowing leaven to affect your whole home, and it will grow. Now, I know that Paul was talking about false teachers and how they affect the body. And a whole church of believers can be affected with false teaching. But we also understand that sin, portrayed by yeast or leaven, it goes back to the original sin of pride and how it puffs up, how it makes you start to think that you've got this, you don't need God. And that's the beginning stages. Pretty soon it's, I don't need God because I'm this good. So back to what I was talking about, being a chef. I got to the point where I thought I was doing everything and that I was the one. I didn't give God any glory at all. Although he's the one that gave me my sense of smell and my sense of taste and the intelligence to put together various ingredients. Okay. So pride goes from, I've got this. This one, I did this one on my own. I'm good. To, I'm this good, and God had nothing to do with it. You don't need to be to the point where you think you are a god to yourself. You just need to be to the point where you think you're this good at what you're doing on your own, regardless of your creator, regardless of the fact that Jesus gave you the abilities that you have to do what you do. So, after watching that video, it really helped me to see the issues of letting a little sin fester in your life. It'll affect your home. It'll affect your family. It'll affect your daily walk. And before you know it, you're no longer looking to God because you think you got this. And instead of Jesus walking next to you, you've put him in a cage. And you're not listening to him or the Holy Spirit anymore. And the devil is walking up next to you. The enemy. His demons, his minions. Whatever. They're there. And they're whispering into your mind that you're all good. You don't need God. Really isn't that sinful. And before you know it, pride has a hold, and you've walked away. So don't do that. Now's not the time anymore. We do not have any more time to be walking away from God or keeping a little sin in our life. Stop lying. Stop cheating. Stop stealing. Stop lusting. Stop living for yourself. Because it's not what we were put here to do. We're to be living for our Creator. We're to be living for God and doing His will. And it'll give you so much joy and peace in your life. You know, every time God peeled back one more layer of my own pride, arrogance, and my idolatry, one more piece of something I was holding on to, thinking this is no big deal. This isn't sin. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not doing anything against the law. I'm not stealing from anybody. I'm not lying to anybody. I'm just killing time. But if I'm killing time, what am I doing for God? And I say that because I'm thinking about when I was playing video games, even at my age. What was that doing for His kingdom? I was wasting my time when I could have been studying His Word, when I could have started this channel years ago, where I could have been pouring into the body of Christ the talents God gave me. So it goes from holding all these things up as more important than God, called idolatry, to not giving Him the time that He deserves. And then eventually, if you're walking right with Him, but you know you're harboring some sin, a little leaven, just a pinch, Only you know about it. But it's unconfessed. It's something you hold on to. And it's eating you up. You wonder why. It might be affecting your relationship with your wife or your husband. It might be affecting your relationship with your children. It might be affecting your witness to anyone. Because you sit back and beat up on yourself for that tiny little bit of sin in your life that you just can't let go of. But then you can't talk to anybody about it because, again, the enemy walks right alongside you and beats you up about it. So, folks, get the sin out of your life. It's time. Jesus is coming very soon. He doesn't want any to perish, and that's why we've lasted this long. That's why we're seeing as much as we're seeing. But in order to be that witness for him, in order to be a watchman yourself, which what we're called to do. So be a watchman. You be a watchman. Pay attention. He's coming quickly. He said that when he comes, not tacos. Now, one of my favorite foods, right? Not tacos. I know, that's fun, whatever. It's the same word we get for tachometer. The same root. It means that, which is revolutions per minute. It's in cars. It measures speed, rate, right? The idea is when he says, I'm coming soon or I'm coming quickly. It literally means that when it begins, it's going to rev up. It's going to go extremely fast. And that's what we're seeing. Just in the last 2 years alone. And I believe the midnight cry began with the pandemic, and it's been going since 2020, and we're literally almost there. Get ready, stay ready, be prepared to give testimony at any given moment, because your testimony, what God has done in your life, may impact one other life. And if it saves one other life because you have gotten rid of the leaven in your life, you've confessed it, you've given it to him, and he has washed you clean, and your pride is gone, and you're able to be a beacon of hope for someone else, that one person that you may touch, and you don't even know when or how it presents itself, but that one person may be eternally secured because you started living for Christ today. And that's what he wants from you. That's what he wants from me. So don't think about your past because he's cleaned it up. If you're not a believer, go watch my salvation video. It's old. Well, old being a couple months, but guess what? I've changed lighting, I've changed my studio, I've changed my sound, so it's not the best. It was the first one I knew I had to do so I could point people to it. But something I talk about there is your worth and what your worth is to God. So go watch that one. Don't lose your worth. He has you here for a reason, and at this time for a reason. Go live for him, and you may touch even one other person where they get eternally secured because they ran into you. If you like my videos, folks, seriously, like them on YouTube. Like them, share them, and subscribe to my channel. I'll continue making content until Christ comes. You can check out my older videos and things that I've done. You'll see how I primarily do news, and I put up a lot of my sources. I don't just wing it. I spend a lot of time researching what God would have me look into. So I pray for everybody here. I pray for everybody watching. I hope you know Jesus. And I hope he lights up your life so you can shine brightly, so you can be bold, and so you can be ready, and so that others question why. Why aren't you scared in the midst of everything else going on? What do you have that they don't? So that you can touch one other life out there. As always, I hope to see you in the air. He's coming. Get ready. God bless.